Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year, Tim.
Oh, yeah. 2018.
It's crazy, right? Remember when 2000 came around and we all thought, oh my gosh, the year 2000, next year, Stanley Kubrick, 2001, the future is here. I watch 2001, I still feel like that's 100 years in the future.
Brother, I remember in 1984 when we were going to party like it was 1999. So,
oh man,
2018 strikes me as perfectly ridiculous. In another 18 years, when Hero flies over in her jet-powered pack supercar, and we're still doing this.
Crazy.
I wonder because what do we got here? We got DVD, Blu-ray, and then this whole 4K situation.
We have 4Ks like nobody's business today. We got a Vox box that we saved up from before the holidays, so we're going to bring that out. Got a couple of listener mail deals, and just quick housekeeping. 2018 coming up. Be perfectly. We encourage everyone to go ahead and send us emails, Vox boxes, whatever you want at gods@digigods.com. Eventually going to switch that over to a gods@cinegods.com account, but for now it's gods@digigods.com still. And of course, go to the Facebook page. The DigiGods Facebook page is a member-only thing. You can apply to join the community. Otherwise, there's the CineGods page, and of course, cinegods.com, which we are still working some bugs out of. Going to make a few posts this week before this thing really kicks into high gear. And that's it. We got a big year ahead. It's going to be an interesting year of movies.
Man. Yeah, we got the big. We have the big show.
Yeah,
of course, in which I gave a speech for Jordan Peele. Gave him best screenplay.
Yep.
There, which was quite an interesting sort of experience. We'll talk about that.
Yep.
And all kinds of neat things. The movies. To say the least of which.
You know, we're gonna start. We've had a few, by the way, a few late passings in 2017, and Rosemary is the one that kind of broke my heart. But she was 94.
Yeah, and she did have that wonderful doc that came out just at the end of last year. You know, which was really mostly just her sitting there talking smack. Talking about Capone and the boys. She called them the boys. She hang out with the boys. Rosemary, who was famous from the age of about 3 or 4 years old, with that big voice, singing, and obviously the Dick Van Dyke Show and all that kind of stuff. But Rosemary, that was an amazing thing. Yeah,
very true. Well, speaking of, I'm gonna start off. We have a lot of stuff accumulated over the last couple of weeks. We got to clean this up today. So this is our 2017 cleanup show. This will probably go live right around the time of New Year's, but it is still 2017 as of the time that we're talking about this. So got a lot of classical stuff, some great titles from Naxos. I'm just going to roll through these so that all the opera and classical fans out there, I'll get you out of the way right quickly. Again, I'm not huge on opera, but I can appreciate it. I've been to some operas. Royal Ballet from Opus Arte, the Royal Opera House. Kenneth Macmillan's Anastasia. I've always been a big fan of the animated film Anastasia.
Ah, yes.
Which, because our friend David produced the CD-ROM interactive Anastasia, and I did the voice of a Russian shopkeeper on that CD-ROM. Which is just weird to me today that I did that. But
it's weird that we probably need to explain what a CD-ROM
Anyway,
was.
I did not even realize until the story of Anastasia, which of course is the legend of the youngest daughter of the Tsar who allegedly had escaped, and I think that's been debunked now because they found her remains.
They found remains, and I suppose it's an interesting story. Yeah, went on for years.
So anyway, of course, there's the old Ingrid Bergman movie. I didn't realize that Macmillan had done it as an opera. And what's interesting too is that simultaneous to this, the team of Lynn Ahrens and Flaherty, is it Timothy Flaherty? Well, anyway, Ahrens and Flaherty, who did the music for the animated Anastasia. They took all that music and they have expanded it into a live, full Broadway, off-Broadway performance thing, which I think goes to Broadway this season.
Wow. And
it's amazing. It's beautiful. And of course, they originally did Ragtime, so this is kind of getting them a little bit closer to that Ragtime thing. But anyway, so the story of Anastasia, legendary one, interesting opera, more modern opera than anything else, but certainly interesting. Then there's also Bellini's Norma, which is part of the Macerata Opera Festival. That's really quite opulent and beautiful and great art direction. Really, really fantastic. Alban Berg's Lulu, which is another, again, a modern opera. Not really my speed. I don't really understand the story, but Berg is apparently a figure, and Lulu has a following. Let me get a few others here. Carmen, can't go wrong with Carmen. We got a new Carmen from C major with the Vienna Symphonic Orchestra, and apparently a really great cast. We got a ballet here, Don Quixote with Rudolf Nureyev.
Oh, Nureyev.
That's also from C major, all on Blu-ray. The Art of David Hallberg at the Bolshoi. Double Blu-ray from Pathé with Sleeping Beauty and Marco Spada on it. I am not a David Hallberg. I don't really understand David Hallberg, but you know what? Pretty impressive. So, if ballet is your thing, that's there too. Let me pull out some of these. We have also got... Oh, this is really interesting, by the way, actually. The Nutcracker. This should have gone on to a Christmas thing. We didn't get it in time, but there is a new Nutcracker from the Royal Opera House Royal Ballet line of Opus Arte. Always beautiful. You can't really go wrong with the Nutcracker. Nutcracker is always fantastic. This is really, really nicely staged, and pretty much anything at the Royal Opera House. This is what I wanted to make mention of. This I thought was really interesting. This is a 4K of Tosca. This is the first time that I've seen anything from any of these classical releases, ballet, opera, classical, anything. This is the first time I've seen anything released in 4K, which is very impressive. Tosca, of course, is by Puccini. This is the Royal Opera House Chorus and Orchestra at Covent Garden. Covent Garden is amazing. Yeah. I love Covent Garden. Forget about the Covent Garden set that you see at the beginning of My Fair Lady. That was actually the Warner Brothers lot. So that's not the actual Covent Garden. The actual Covent Garden is a great place to hang out in London and have lunch, and of course to see things like Puccini's Tosca. Absolutely terrific. Angela Giorgio, Roberta Alagna, Ruggiero Raimondi in Puccini's Tosca. This is from Art House Music, a 4K release, the first one of its kind for classical. So this is a really, really, really big deal. Shot on 35, I should point out, shot on 35 millimeter film, and then released now 4K. Very, very impressive. We've also got, this was part of our some of the gifts that we gave away, but we didn't get one to actually review. Time Life CMA Awards Live. So we finally got ours to review, and this is amazing. If you're a country music fan, you're just going to go nuts here. The 127 live performances over 50 years on this thing. You could just sit here and watch it for hours and hours and hours. There are 9 DVDs in this box set. It covers from 1968 to 2015, and it is a really fascinating kind of history of country music at the same time. I used to poo-poo country music a lot, as a lot of people did from my generation, until you realize it's a really, really rich history, and it's changed a lot over the years, and it's global.
Yeah,
it's global.
Yeah,
it's kind of amazing. You've got what's his name from Australia, Mr. Nicole Kidman there. I mean, it reaches far and wide. Also from the Royal Opera House and the Royal Ballet is a twofer here. A couple of ballets from Christopher Wheeldon, Cinderella and Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Now, did I know that there was a Cinderella ballet? This is done by the Dutch National Ballet on here. Yes, that I knew, and it's beautifully, Prokofiev did the music, absolutely beautifully conducted, as well by Armando Florio. But I did not know that there was a ballet of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Oh.
That I did not know. So you learn something all the time. Both of them very, very nicely staged. We also have on a really kind of, this is a little bit too aggressively modern, a modernized version of Mozart's Così fan tutte. Not quite my speed. I like the music. Not sure that I actually like this national Parisian opera staging of it. By the way, did you ever see the movie Cosi years ago? 20 years ago, it was a
Oh
Miramax
yes,
release with Toni Collette.
yes,
About the staging, insane asylum inmates staging Cosi Fantasy.
Oh yeah,
hysterical.
fantastic.
Great
Toni
movie.
Collette, I could believe it.
Anyway, I missed that movie. It's now caught up in the whole Miramax.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Verdi's I Due Foscari. This is from C major, from the Teatro alla Scala, with Placido Domingo. All you need to know, Placido Domingo, Verdi. Nothing else needs to be said. Beautifully staged, amazing performances, really wonderful. Even if you don't like opera, Domingo is always a reason to take a little time out. Also from Verdi is the Messa de Requiem, with the Zurich Opera House chorus and orchestra. Absolutely beautiful, just gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching music. Shakespeare's Cymbeline is also out on a Blu-ray from the Royal Shakespeare Company as part of the Opus Arte line. Not musical, but because it is Opus Arte, it goes in with all of the classical stuff. And that's very nice. We also have, as long as we're in kind of a festive year-end religious mode, Bach's Saint Matthew Passion, which is one of the great all-time choral works ever in history. This is really, really wonderful. It's a DVD, not a Blu-ray, so you're not getting lossless audio on this. You're just getting the regular DVD DTS. However, it is plenty adequate just because the majesty of the performance is just so tremendous. Got a couple of other interesting things here. Programs 13 and 14 on one disc and 15 and 16 on another of the All-Star Orchestra with music director and conductor Gerard Schwartz. This is a thing that Naxos has been putting out for a while. We've never covered this before, and it's kind of a cool thing, to be honest. The performances here are pretty great, but what this is like the greatest musicians from the top 30 orchestras in America, and they're all put together. And I don't know whose job it is to say you're a better violinist, you Boston first chair, than the person in the LA filler versus whatever. I don't know who gets to make that call. I guess Mr. Schwartz, but it's like the ultimate orchestra playing the ultimate in music, which includes Enigma Variations by Edward Elgar in Program 15, which is some of my favorite all-time music.
Elgar. And
Jan Sibelius's Symphony No. 2 on Program 14. Really, really interesting. Very fascinating concept. I like it. It feels like it could be a little gimmicky, but it's not. It actually really, really plays. And then we've got some Blu-ray CD combo sets here. One is Black Sabbath, The End, from 2017 in Birmingham. And you know what? I've never been a Black Sabbath fan, but it's Ozzy, man.
Yeah, Ozzy.
I am kind of an Ozzy fan. So if you're sitting around and you're an old rocker and you're like Ozzy and you're a little stooped over like he is every time I've seen him at the drugstore, shuffling down the aisle where there are clearly something for incontinence or who knows what.
Yeah.
He gets young again here. He really pulls it together. And let's see. And then we've also, lastly, on the music end, got a quartet of releases here. Deconstructing the Beatles. This is an educational journey on 4 albums: Sgt. Pepper, Revolver, The White Album, and Rubber Soul.
Yeah.
Each one gets its own DVD, and it's really quite interesting. You learn probably more about what went into these albums than you will ever want to. This is basically kind of it's musicology is what it is, and it's kind of a tour on how these albums were put together and the process of recording and writing and producing, and it's really quite interesting. I know a little bit about it. Tim, I know you're the son of a musician. Yeah. You know a little bit more about this stuff than I do, but it was interesting nonetheless.
Fantastic stuff.
All right, so that's it. We've got the music. Tim, we've accumulated a fair bit of LGBT stuff as well.
Yeah, TLA releasing what is this? Deku?
Oh yes, Deku is the line. That's
the line
the
from
distributor.
TLA?
The distributor. Yeah.
And most of the stuff is are television series.
Yeah.
Sort of like little small indie television series. Interesting stuff, particularly since we just spent a good amount of time praising "Call Me by Your Name."
Our favorite film of the year,
our favorite
the
film of the year, the LA Film Critics. You know, a film about a sort of encounter between two gay men of a certain age in Italy. A beautiful film. Interesting that neither one of those guys are gay.
Yeah.
Yet we have the stack of movies here with all actual gay people, more or less doing all the same stuff they did in that movie, which is, has always been a little interesting to me. But some of this stuff is interesting just because it's genre stuff. First we have season 1 of I'm Fine, which is really just one of these lovely little, almost sitcom-y sort of dramas about 4 guys, young guys in their 20s, roaming around. At the center of the whole group is one guy, about 20-something, Jeff, who is just, everyone is just smitten by him, and everything is just sort of floats around him. But, of course, he's hung up on his ex-boyfriend. So, that's a sitcom. That's a television series right there. It's interesting. Not a lot on it. But kind of okay if that's the kind of stuff that we're doing. Center of My World, also from TLA. This is an interesting little movie. This one is about a young man who comes home for the summer to find that his twin sister and his mother have quit speaking to each other. And there's a whole lot of drama going on and something behind the scenes. He doesn't care about any of that. He's trying to have his last summer. And then another boy comes in who's a friend of the sisters, and they have a little affair. And it's a perfectly lovely little movie. German with English subtitles is Center of My World. Nice little thing there. A Place in the Sun. This kind of reminded me of Polanski's Knife in the Water.
Oh yeah.
In a particular kind of way. It's about this young woman who meets a fella in a club. And she brings him home, and a little bit later, her fella's friend has a friend who comes over, and he's jealous. But he's not jealous of the girl, he's jealous of the boy. Some emotional sort of stuff ensues, and a little thriller gets set underway. Also kind of reminded me a little bit of, not the talented Mr. Ripley, but the one that was Blue Moon, was it?
Oh,
something like that. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Kind of reminded me of that in a particular sort of way. This one here, You Can't Escape Lithuania, is a really neat film. Again,
that's a depressing title. I guess unless you really love Lithuania. But,
it's a neat thing. So you have this. It's like a movie within a movie kind of thing. You have this guy who's making a movie. He has this main actress who's in this movie. She kills her mother. He has to help her escape Lithuania. As they are attempting to escape Lithuania, he decides he's going to keep making his movie. And they end up making this sort of little experimental film. Again, the thing that I love about all of these movies, while in fact they are gay cinema, they're all genre cinema. These are just genre movies. And as it happens, the love scenes and the romances are between people of the same sex. But other than that, these are just genre movies. A Date for Mad Mary is an interesting little comedy, for instance. It's about this girl who goes off to prison, comes home to a little town in Ireland, right? Mm-hmm. She has a best friend. Her best friend's about to get married. And Mad Mary wants a +1. But her friend tells her, look, I'm not going to give you a +1 because, you're not going to be able to get a date anyway. You know that, right? So this is about Mad Mary and everything she does to try to get a date. And when she realizes who she wants to bring to that party, it's not a fella, but a really cute gal. So that's kind of interesting. Inheritance, Jessica Kay, a Mark Webber film. This is a pretty neat and an intense movie. It has a director's commentary on it too, so you're going to want to check that out. Anyway, this one has a young woman who's returning to her childhood home, and she's dealing with the death of her estranged father. and her crazy freaking brother, played by Mark Webber, who's a very intense young actor who I like a lot. And what all goes on between them and another one of their friends from long ago. This was a pretty intense little movie, South by Southwest last year, 2017. Again, when you think about some of the films that we've been talking about lately, this just fits in with any of those movies.
Sure.
A good solid genre film. The Body Electric. This is a pretty neat little film. It's about this guy who's working in this textile factory, and he has a whole bunch of buddies that he hangs out with, and they work in these long shifts, and they go out and they have parties, and they meet all kinds of new people, and they decide that they're going to go out on a long weekend and have themselves a wacky adventure. This is just as sweet and funny and sort of little magical a film as you ever would want to see, and it's not particularly gay, except there's one or two little relationships in there, but it's just about people discovering who they are and what they like, and that they actually like the lives that they have right now. Perfectly lovely movie. Special features includes an interview with the director, Marcello Catano, and his short film I just saw here, Ball. I never did see that film, so that might be interesting. Here's a series that's kind of interesting.
And season 2 of that is coming out soon as well.
Season 2 of this one is coming out soon? Okay. This is about a family.
I don't even know how to pronounce the title of this. It's like Romeo.
Yeah, Romeo and Romeo. It's something like that, right? Anyway, it's about this family. It's kind of these two families who years and years and years ago, was something that went down between these families, and they're all sort of remotely involved in crime anyway. And two people in each one of the families become romantically involved, and it could lead to a whole bunch of stuff that goes on. Anyway, this is the first season of that, part 1 anyway. I don't know if it would be a season. It's part 1. Of a 2-part series.
And the second season or second part is coming out in a matter of weeks, actually.
A couple of more of these. Dreamboat. This is actually from Strand.
Yeah, Strand. Well, Strand pioneered the. Strand was actually the first company to sort of focus on LGBT titles, and that's how they sort of branded themselves. They don't do as much of it anymore, but that was the original. That was originally their bread and butter. They were the only distributor that would go around to LGBT to Outfest.
To Outfest, yeah, because I just cover Outfest all the time. Yeah. Dreamboat. This is a neat movie. It's about these guys who once a year go out on one of these sort of big gay cruises and do this and do that. But really, it's about the sort of emotional holes in some of their lives and what's missing because they can't always have the sort of families that they would like to have, and some people are still in the closet, and the difference between younger gay men and older gay men and how that doesn't always line up as well as you would think. It's a perfectly lovely movie from Strand releasing. Hidden Kisses. This is from Breaking Glass?
Yes.
What do you know about that company?
Breaking Glass. We've covered Breaking Glass for quite a while. Breaking Glass is also a primarily focused on LGBT stuff, like K-Shop, which is like one of their. It's kind of like a gay horror film. Which doesn't sound good when you say it that way, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a gay horror film. That's exactly what it is. It's a perfectly.
Anyway, that's
K-Shop. Is that from Strand?
Who's that? That's from Breaking Glass.
That's from Breaking Glass. This one from Breaking Glass too. This is Hidden Kisses. This is a perfectly lovely movie about a 16-year-old boy. Excuse me. Who's he lives along with his father, and they're having some issues. A new kid comes to the high school, and he falls in love with the new kid, and it puts him in a situation where he has to figure out whether or not he's going to tell his father that he's gay, and as he develops this relationship. It's a perfectly loving, touching movie, it's a really neat thing. And Coffee House Chronicles, exactly what it is, a series. The Coffee House Chronicle, the movie. And it's like what was that one? Wang Wang and Smoke.
Well, there were two of them. It was Smoke
and Coffee and Cigarettes.
No, that's
Jim
the other thing.
That's Jim Jarmusch.
Smoke, and then what was the follow up that was mostly improvised?
Blue in the Face.
Thank you.
So this is one of those kind of things, only with a whole bunch of really buff gay guys. Mostly, I watch these movies and I think, man, I need to go to the gym. A documentary by Gerald McCullough called All Male, All Nude, which is very, very interesting. Straight men, gay men, bisexual men, who are all sort of roaming around these clubs, and you have these men who identify themselves in very, very particular ways. And this documentary sort of gets behind the scenes of all of that. It's extremely interesting. Special features includes an uncensored short behind the soundtrack, because music is very important in this, because that's what's going on in a lot of these clubs. It's intense stuff, but it's very, very interesting. All male, all nude, and that is also from Breaking Glass.
Awesome, Tim. You killed it. So we're going to talk about some TV now.
Yeah.
Some really, really big TV releases came out just in the last few weeks. One of them was not Fuller House, the complete second season, but I feel obligated to sort of put this on people's radar if you were a fan of Full House.
It blows me away that actually stuck around for 2 seasons.
It's sort of bizarre, and this was also, they tout this on the box too, that Fuller House, and for those who don't know, the old series Full House was brought back as like in a desperate attempt to
two of the kids, the older daughters, but not the 2 twins, because they're bazillionaires and don't have to do crap television.
So yes, the older daughters, and they've got, anyway, the next generation, Fuller House. This actually is the winner of the 2017 People's Choice Award for favorite premium comedy series. Now, I want to read that again. Winner, 2017 People's Choice Award. Right there, you're already on thin ice, because People's Choice Awards are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Favorite, not favorite series, not favorite comedy series, but favorite premium comedy series.
Yeah, you gotta find the niche that you can stick it in where there's only one other show.
What others are there? Transparent in this?
I have no
idea. Is that it? Are they the only 2?
I have no idea. That's so funny. Candace Cameron and Jodie Sweetin were those 2 kids. And I used to watch that show. That show, Bob Saget. Bob Saget was funny.
Yeah.
And of course, the never aging John Stamos, who never appears on this show. and Aunt Lori, I forget what the actress's name is.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a thing. Anyway.
So, all right. So here's what we're a little bit excited about. We got a couple of things that we're excited about, and one of them, we talked about the first 5 seasons of South Park. Well, Paramount has now added another 6, so we get 6 through 11 on Blu-ray, beautifully put together, all the same, great stuff. You get commentary on here with Trey Parker and Matt Stone, and it's always great. And I would almost recommend that you listen to it just with the commentary on, because the commentary is not just funny, but it's also really, really educational. I am a big fan of these guys, even if I haven't been a fan of the later seasons of the show. It's always interesting to hear what they say. And one thing that I was thinking about too is, do you realize this goes back a bit, but I remember when the first season of South Park came out, they wouldn't let Trey and Matt do commentary for it. They released the commentary separately because it was too blue.
Okay.
Which is, so you had to get like the commentary on a CD and play the CD simultaneous to the thing, and it was all very clunky. And eventually they remedied that, but they were so skittish at the time.
It's so weird though, because it's not like South Park. The shows were ever PG.
No.
So I can't imagine them being any bluer than than Cartman.
Crazy.
I mean, Cartman was blue.
Crazy. But there are some amazingly great episodes in these seasons, and a lot of the really, really classic stuff that you remember, that comes from these seasons. It's usually somewhere around like something from about 5, 6, 7. Those 3 seasons in particular are really, really classic. So South Park has gone all blue, and first 11 seasons now formally out on Blu-ray. We've also got, before I let Tim get into what we think is something really super cool, Salvation, which I was unaware of. This is season 1 of a science fiction show from CBS and Paramount. It's okay. It's not bad. It's kind of one of those apocalyptic shows that's kind of become all the vogue now. And it's more cerebral than what you normally get, and I appreciate that. The the Earth on the brink, and I think we probably all think about that a lot more now with things like North Korea and finding out that North Korea apparently has just piles of anthrax that they're ready to unleash on the world. And,
well, I don't know, but this is one of those asteroid hitting towards. And they made all those movies in the '90s already. Yeah. So
But it's nice. It's well handled, and the acting is good, and there's some the science in it. It's close enough to our day, and it works. It's a decent show. So I'm looking forward to more in the future. Not on Blu-ray, strictly on DVD. And then what didn't need to happen, much like Fuller House, is Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life. I don't know where
that was 2000, the year 2000 again.
Yeah,
that original series kicked off.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, they went ahead and they did a Gilmore Girls reunion thing. 2 discs here, broken up into seasons. The A Year in the Life, whatever. Okay, I liked the show. It was fun, but I didn't need this Blu-ray.
Yeah. It had a following that was perfectly insane.
Tim, we're very excited
on the heels of the New Dynasty, because there's a New Dynasty series that's running around. Haven't watched any of that yet. You know why? Because in 1981, I started watching this Dynasty. And I don't know what they're doing on that new show, but they're not getting down like Joan Collins and
the
Linda
cat
Evans.
Fight.
Dude. The fight that went into the pool.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
That is fantastic stuff.
That is just great. Look, I love Dynasty, every trashy second of it. And here's the thing that I love about Dynasty. Dallas really invented this genre. Dallas was the first primetime soap opera that took all that trashy daytime stuff and wrapped it up and made it look like primetime, glowing in primetime, late 70s.
Yeah.
And it was so successful at it that next thing you know, you have spin-offs of Dallas,
Falcon
Crest,
Flamingo Road,
all that stuff.
All of which I watched. Knots Landing was the specific.
Yeah. But nobody actually went toe-to-toe with Dallas except Dynasty.
That was the one,
That was it.
And because the context was relatively speaking the same. You took the rich and powerful guy, you put him at the top, and these 2 women. And the number of people, this is the complete series, by the way. 217 episodes on 57 discs, all kinds of special features. Sort of 3 big boxes, seasons 1 through 4. 5 through 7 and 8 and 9 in the third box. And when I look at the back of this box and I see Heather Locklear and I see Diana Carroll and I see Catherine Oxenberg. Oh my God. So this is the way to do it, boys and girls.
And I am also a fan of the Colbys, which was the spinoff from Dynasty.
Yeah. Jeff Colby, who was
and my favorite moment, I kid you not, my favorite moment in television history. It's not from Star Trek. It's not from My Beloved China Beach. It's not even, anything from I Love Lucy. No. My favorite moment in television history is when Fallon on the Colbys is abducted by a flying saucer.
Yeah,
that is television classic right there. How we get from John Forsythe and Linda Evans to the second actress to play their daughter.
Yeah.
Because there were two Fallons and 2 Stevens.
Yeah.
To being abducted by aliens is just priceless. I am so grateful for that.
After they killed JR and brought him back.
Bobby. It was Bobby they
killed Bobby and brought him back. It was who shot JR.
Yeah.
It was
the whole dream season while he was doing his contract renegotiation.
And after they did all of that, they thought about George Peppard. It's all kinds of stuff. After they did all of that, it was fair game.
Yeah.
The alien didn't strike anybody as particularly strange. I cannot believe I watched all of that stuff at the heels of my mom.
Yeah, I know.
Years and years and years ago. Absolutely. Where are we going?
We a few more things on TV. Luke Cage, complete first season from Netflix, is out.
Solid show.
Real solid show. One of the 4 Defenders shows. If you didn't see it, so here's the thing about Luke Cage. So far, I guess this is how it's broken down. We've had 2 seasons of Daredevil, 1 season of Jessica Jones, 1 season of Luke Cage,
and then
1 season of Iron Fist. The Defenders miniseries that wraps them all together, which is really like simultaneously a a second season of Iron Fist and a third season of Daredevil with special guest stars Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. It's kind of how that is.
And the Punisher shows up in,
which I haven't watched yet. How is it? Have you seen it?
It's pretty solid. He shows up in Daredevil anyway.
Right, he's in the second season of Daredevil.
John Berkenthal or whatever his name is, but it's pretty solid. It's pretty solid as well. Not as good as these though. Darker.
See, I for the way that I would rank it is, I would say second season of Daredevil, best of all those shows. Iron Fist is the worst. Iron Fist is just, it's terrible.
Well, he's a problem.
He's a problem.
I'm a big Jessica Jones fan, though. I got to tell you.
And then I would say, much as I love the first season of Daredevil, I would say right after that second Daredevil season, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones are right in there, just kind of neck and neck. And what I love about Luke Cage, what I love is this first season, what I love about it is it takes unbelievable risks. It means to be a throwback to the blaxploitation era. It means to kind of, tip its hat to all that stuff. But it does a thing right in the middle where it shifts gears. And if you follow the comic book and you know the characters in the comic book, it references the comic book, but it does an amazingly cool thing. It just kind of like flips antagonists on you. And Mahershala Ali is pretty much the first half of the show, kind of the antagonist. And then it flips on you, and then there's an
interesting guy that comes in.
Yeah.
And Alfred Woodard doing some really good work in there too.
It's really good.
Because Cage is set in Harlem. I think Devil's Kitchen is where Daredevil.
Hell's Kitchen
is where Daredevil is.
Yeah.
And Jessica Jones too, I guess.
Jessica Jones is Hell's Kitchen too.
So we sort of roam around all of these
New York,
they sort of float back and forth. It's what I like about all of that is that they are all paying attention to each other.
Yeah.
Unlike, say, like some of the Marvel shows on the CW, the Flash and Supergirl, and they pay attention to each other, but they cheat.
Yeah, they do.
These shows aren't cheating.
Yeah, every time there's a crossover in the Arrowverse from like where look, Arrow and Flash are basically the exact same show. They're kind of like Batman and the Green Lantern. It's just like there's the home base and the people with the computers and everybody kind of
the little
team, and they're all very cheeky about it because you'll have the person like the girl from Arrowverse and then what's his name from Flash. They'll meet each other and they're like, and then they swap secrets because we have the same job for different heroes.
Between Arrow and Flash is that Arrow is surly, and Barry in the Flash is chipper.
Yeah,
that's the only difference. He's happy and he's sad.
That's really true.
That's the only thing. Anyway, neat stuff.
And then some British TV before we get into some docs and some new movies. A lot of great stuff from Acorn TV, 19-2, season 4. Really, really good cop show. This is kind of, and we include this again in British TV because it is part of the Commonwealth. This is a Canadian show, in point of fact, but 19-2 is a really, really, really good show. It's very American in its sensibilities, but it's a great cast, and it's, action-packed and really good writing. And, I like the fact that it takes place in Montreal. So, I've been to Montreal. It's a beautiful city. It's not exactly a crime-addled city, but it's nice. It's a nice backdrop. And then on Blu-ray, and that's DVD. And then on Blu-ray, Gillian Anderson continues to kill it in Series 3 of The Fall, along with Jamie Dornan. I just think it's great that she went to the UK to do a show.
Yeah,
I really do. I just think that's terrific.
She's the one American actress who gets to play that English British accent. Sometimes she'll do those movies but she will play that British accent, and she gets hired regularly to do that, which is great. I can't think of anybody else. Yeah,
no. And she plays a detective superintendent here, and she anchors it, and it's really a tough show. What's interesting here is that this is I don't want to call it like a genre show per se, but the character of Spectre here is really, really interesting and very much dominates this, and it does start to feel almost a little bit like a superhero show on some level. The way that there's this kind of cat and mouse thing going on, it's really, really it's pretty terrific. And then if you're a fan of George Gently, the complete collection is out on Blu-ray. All 8 seasons of it from RLJ. And it's a really, really sharp show. This has quite a following for good reason, and this includes all 25 feature-length mysteries. and you can sit and watch this for hours and hours and hours and be absolutely enthralled by the great writing and the great direction.
Yeah.
George Gently Complete Collection on Blu-ray. All right, let's talk about some new movies.
Alrighty. Let me grab Judy.
Oh, actually, you know what?
No.
Let's do our Vox Box first.
Okay, great.
Let's do our Vox Box, and before the Vox Box, I want to read one piece of listener mail, which is really interesting. Al Lai up in San Francisco, longtime listener to the show, wrote us an interesting little tidbit related to the Bruce Lee film, which talks about Bruce Lee and Wong Jack Man that we talked about on the last show.
Yeah.
And here it is. He said David Chin, because Al comes from that neck of the woods, so he knows his stuff. Said David Chin, then a Hopgar stylist who eventually transitioned to Tai Chi, Xing Yi, was the original assignee for the Lee fight.
Oh.
And he fell through. So Wong Jack Man got the assignment. David Chin, was a salesman at the Buick dealership located a block away from the famed Coronet Theater and sold us our 8-cylinder Century in 1974. And then Al goes on to say that his dad performed at one of the earliest Chinese martial arts demos in the U.S. at the Civic Auditorium not long after that fight. And Rick Wing, who was Wong's heir to the San Francisco Jingmo Club, gleaned a tidbit for his ebook. Already having moved to L.A., Lee reluctantly trekked back to the city to attend this on the sly to show support for his once fellow street delinquent Chris Chan, who demonstrated Wing Chun that evening. So, anyway, really fascinating that Wong Jack Man, not the original guy. The original guy sold one of our listeners his family Buick in 1974. I love this podcast. That's why we do this. All right, Al, thank you for that wonderful, wonderful anecdote. Good stuff, and I'm going to research more on the fight that could have been. That's a more interesting story to me.
Well, than the movie, which is all made up.
Yeah. All right, so Billy Milby, also a longtime listener, sent in a Vox Box, and we no longer have Mark to do his obnoxious. It's a Vox Box. We're not going to do that. So here, without
recorded it,
we should have recorded it and used it to drop in. Maybe I'll ask him to send it to me, because I can't. We can't replicate that. So here is our Vox Box with Billy Milby.
Hi, DigiGods. This is Billy Milby. I wanted to ask a Voxbox question. You guys have thrown around the term journeyman a number of times, and I was wanting to get your official origin and definition of it. I've kind of gleaned my own definition, which is a go-to studio director who you can expect a certain amount of quality from, although he's not exceptional. Anyway, it just seemed like an interesting term, and I thought you guys could shed some more light on that, seeing as I've heard it so many times over the years. Thanks for everything you guys do.
Really interesting question.
Indeed.
That's a word that gets used a lot. Maybe Tim and I may even have different definitions. For me, a journeyman, when I talk about a journeyman, is typically somebody who it doesn't necessarily originate their own movies, but they're a good director for hire, and they will do any kind of genre. You see them show up consistently, and that happened more during the studio era than it does now, really. But there are people, like a lot of those guys that did westerns. Henry Hathaway would be a good example. Like, he'll do a western. You need somebody to do a noir, he'll do it. You
can look at it in certain ways. Oddly, a guy like Nick Rogue, although he did these very, very specific films, if you look across the genre of those films, Nick Rogue knocked them out in every genre.
He did,
and they were done well. But generally speaking, you're right. Of course, a journeyman is the reverse of an auteur.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's the way I would think about it. And generally speaking, it's not about their own material. They certainly didn't write it.
Right.
Journeymen are often brought in to fix things that are problematic because they understand the framework of genres.
Frankenheimer would be a journeyman.
Frankenheimer was a journeyman. Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. They're moving around those genres, and TV is full of journeymen.
Yeah.
You have people, even today, television streaming or whatever it is we call television, full of journeyman directors. Directors that the folks out there have never heard of.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have never, ever directed features, but have dozens, if not hundreds, of credits to their name on all kinds of television programs and every kind of genre you can think of. You know why?
Yeah.
Because they can make that train run on time. And,
That's it.
And in television, regular broadcast television anyway, that train running on time is the most important thing.
Yep.
Can't be floating around like Coppola out in the middle of the Philippines.
trying to get your vision on.
No, dude, baby, this has to air at 7:30 on Friday,
and we got to lock it in.
Yeah, that's a journeyman. Yeah.
And among new movies, here's one that that's kind of a nice little thing to shine a spotlight on. From Monarch, it's called One of Us, and this is a little indie. Deals with the culture of a cult, a commune that is basically a cult, and the politics and the spooky, creepy activities therein. This is worth checking out because it has Carly Schrader in it, and Carly Schrader kind of fell off the radar a little bit. She was it was about 20 years ago when she was a teenager. I thought she was going to be a really, really big deal. And she made Gracie, the girls' soccer movie, and she was in Mean Creek. Anyway, I am just thrilled that she's still there, and she's still a really good actress, and I really, really hope her career takes off in some ways that
she was good.
She was great.
She is good. She is good.
So this is a small film, but she's still there. She's still in the mix, and darn it all, she deserves a better career. So there
excellent, it is. Excellent. Let's see. What do you want to do? You want to pop over to some of the new stuff here?
Let's hit the 4K.
So is that this business right here?
Yeah, this is
all of this stuff here.
All this 4K
on 4K. Talk to me a little bit about this 4K Blu-ray DVD situation.
So here's where things are now. So just to kind of get everybody straightened up, and we're going to be doing some stuff on CineGods.com that'll get more into sort of home 4K theater and home 4K workflow if you're doing production and whatnot. But the HD spec of 1080p, that's 1080 lines horizontal. Okay. So 1080 lines horizontal is 1920 lines vertical. So when you're moving from HD to 4K, you need to switch your thinking from horizontal to vertical. So we're not talking about vertical lines, horizontal lines anymore. Where it's 720p and 1080p.
Yeah.
Forget about P. Everything's P now. Okay. There is no interlaced. Interlaced doesn't exist anymore except for really, really old media. So an HD set has 1920 lines vertically. And a 4K set has nearly twice as many. So the resolution vertically is doubled when you get to 4K, and that's what 4K means. So we've moved now. It's still Blu-ray, and you can still put a Blu-ray in a 4K player, and it will upconvert. It'll kind of fill in the lines with some kind of algorithm, but 4K stuff, everything's been mastered pretty much in 4K now for several years, and now they're taking those masters that were down converted for Blu-ray release, and they're just releasing the original 4K masters, slightly compressed because it's 4K television. It's actually UHD. It's like 3,900 lines. It's not quite 4,000 lines, but it's close enough. So
visually, for folks who wonder what all of this stuff means, and want to break it down to what does this actually mean that I see that's different from the other thing, it's depth.
Yeah.
The addition of the vertical line gives you a sense of a deeper depth.
Yes.
That's what it is. Now, all of that can be manipulated when you pick up the controls of your television and hit the menu and start futzing around with all the modes and all of this kind of stuff. But that's the other thing that you get is more ability to futz around with all that stuff.
And there are other things that get really confusing, and I'll try to explain this to people over time as people explain it to me, because I have engineers and techs who get my eyes glazing over. But HDR, which stands for High Dynamic Range, which you also probably see once in a while on your iPhone when you take a photo or something. That's actually more important than the 4K, because that is now more colors and richer colors and deeper colors, and the colors create a sense of depth as well. So it's like a friend of mine who was my DP for all my film student stuff. He's a brilliant tech, and he explained it to me this way. He said, more pixels is not as important as better pixels. So, bit depth in pixels will be the next thing, but I don't know how they market that. It's when you get to start, it's kind of 64 bit pixels and things like that.
You know, and I know we need to actually talk about these movies, but you know the thing that it all results in to me. Again, back to just what it means visually. So if you didn't know anything, it's about presence, right? It's about an ultra sense of presence.
Yeah.
When you're watching, you know, a 4K thing on a 4K TV that's all tweaked out to where it's supposed to be, what you get is a sense of that thing, those images being in the room with you.
Yeah,
right.
True.
Now, here's the thing. I don't like that. I like the natural softness, and I know that we're talking about the digital media.
I'm glad you're saying this.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying. I don't have to say it to you. You know,
you know, it's a very interesting thing, and this happens at awards season sometimes. And when you look at the screeners that we look at, the DVD screeners that they send us for award season are sort of all over the map in terms of quality. You know,
sometimes they still have time code.
So, yeah, I mean, no fault against IFC, but they just flip that switch and nobody watches what results. No. I mean, I've had in the past where like IFC will send me something and it's just the wrong aspect ratio, and I look at it, I just think, was nobody minding the store? Like, was this done by a bot? Who did this? No QC. What's the deal? But very often I find something really interesting, and it is this, where we will get a movie on DVD, and I'll put it in the Blu-ray player, which will upconvert for high def, but it still has the natural softness.
Okay.
And it looks like film.
Film, yeah.
And then for this show, 3 months later, it'll come out on Blu-ray, and I pop that Blu-ray in, and it almost makes my eyes hurt.
Yeah.
And I think I actually prefer. Yeah, the colors were not as sharp. The imagery was not as sharp.
The edges are not as hard.
But it looked.
But it looked like a movie.
It looked like a movie.
It looked like a movie
on DVD, up converted, and on a Blu-ray, it doesn't look like a movie anymore.
Yeah. What I'm finding myself doing is, you know, you saw pop in on Blu-ray, the 4K, whatever it is. Yeah. I don't actually have a 4K TV, but you know, my friend Pat, pop it in, right? And I go into, and I find myself desaturating. I find myself bringing down the contrast.
Yep.
I find myself manipulating all of that power, all of those lines of resolution in both directions to drag them down to where they were 100 years ago.
Yes.
35 millimeter film to make that movie look like a movie again.
Yep.
And I don't know, maybe I'm an artifact myself but I know the difference, and the other thing was better. The other thing was better.
It is. They're going to have to start paying more and more attention, because sharper and clearer and more colorful is not necessarily better.
Not necessarily.
You know what also is not better is Kingsman: The Golden Circle is not better than Kingsman. How's that for transition segue? So I loved the original Kingsman. I really did. I thought it was cool. I thought it was just awesome and violent and creative, and Colin Firth was fantastic, and you know, I know it was based on a graphic novel, but it just Matthew Vaughn just killed it, and he made it cool, and everything that I had loved about Kick-Ass and about X-Men First Class, which he directed as well. He just brought that and put it on steroids, and Kingsman was cool. The private secret agents, and they conscript this street kid, and he's got the stuff and all the gadgets and the gizmos, and Samuel Jackson with that list, which made no sense, but it was still hilarious, and it was just cool. And all of that is gone in Kingsman: The Golden Circle. It's just dumb. They concoct a silly way of bringing Colin Firth back to life. He's like lost his memory, and
it's so ridiculous the way they play the sort of notion that and I'm like, no, he's not. He's on the poster. He's not.
I know.
What are you? Why are you jacking around with all of that?
And Julianne Moore shot for maybe a week on a single set that was dressed up to look like a drug plantation in Central America.
Poppy.
And all it is just it's a set with a whole lot of greenskeeping on it. And she's the villain, and she's not a very interesting villain. And then there's some really gory stuff that isn't funny, and I don't know. And then the American angle, right?
All the stuff with the whiskey guys.
Like Kingsman, we have, there's another one that happened to be set up in America, because there was the one guy who went there, and we didn't know that you had Statesman and we had Kingsman, and you've got whips that, stop it. It's, Jeff Bridges really well cast, but hardly in the movie.
Yeah.
And could I just say, the one thing that was supposed to be really, really cool about this was Channing Tatum.
Yeah.
Like Channing Tatum, you're like, really? He's going to be the statesman. Channing Tatum goes into a coma like 10 minutes after they introduce him, and then we're supposed to have him as the spin-off guy.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a spin-off. No. You just screwed up Channing Tatum's best shot.
Yeah, they just jacked it straight to heck.
Is it good on 4K? Yeah, it's too sharp though.
Yeah. Interesting.
Tons of extras.
On 4K, Mother, Darren Aronofsky's extremely controversial film.
Which I still refuse to see this.
It's controversial is not even the correct word. Most people just hate it. And that's not controversial at all. Most people just hate it, and then there are a few who don't. Yeah. But I don't think that makes it controversial. Here's the thing about this movie. Darren Aronofsky directing Jennifer Lawrence, who he notoriously was going out with at the time anyway. Javier Bardem, the return of Michelle Pfeiffer, Ed Harris in the film. Javier Bardem is playing this poet. It's all quite surreal, and if you're paying attention, you sort of understand the surrealness of what's going on, and such that when it really starts to move into some really strange places, it's not all that surprising. If you're not paying attention, it will strike you as simply bizarre, which it is in either case. The movie is about this, though, very simply, without giving anything away. The artist as paramount, and what the artist is doing and the artist's work and as paramount. Darren Aronofsky is saying in this film that I am an artist. I am a consummate artist, and whatever I do, no matter how insane and vicious it seems to those around me, to those who I pretend to love me, it doesn't make any difference because the art is worth it. And then he goes about this movie simply doing that. Just mayhem and destruction in the service of his art, which of course is what this movie is too, mayhem and destruction. So I don't know. I get why some people. I don't actually hate this movie. I sort of understand it from that narcissistic point of view. I just don't know why anybody would want to watch it. Darren Aronofsky, get yourself a therapist. That's what you ought to do.
And their relationship broke up right
after. I'm like, literally what happens in this movie happened, and he manifests in his relationship what is manifested in this film. Jennifer Lawrence looks fantastic, though. The 4K, I cannot imagine what this film looks like in 4K because it was so overwhelming in the theater where I saw it. In 4K, I don't know, it would probably rip right through me.
I elected to not watch it, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
It's just knowing what comes in the movie from people who've seen it, and you included. I just said I really don't want that in my brain.
Yeah, don't need that. That's exactly the point. There's no reason to insert this narcissistic a-hole's crap in your head. And I bet you Jennifer wishes she hadn't. You gonna go with the Transformers?
I'm gonna talk about some Transformers on 4K. So here's the thing. First 4 Transformers movies are out on 4K. That would be Transformers, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Transformers Dark of the Moon, and Transformers Age of Extinction. All of them Ultra HD 4K. All of them look terrific. Here's what's interesting. You can see the evolution of CGI as you go through the series. You can see the 4K just reveals all the flaws. You're like, okay, there's a little less. Wow, there's a lot more detail. Wow, the software got a lot better.
Some of that stuff looks like it wasn't even rendered.
It's amazing.
It looks like like the just terrible.
You think that's really those are impressive with special effects? Nope. Those those. It's like watching the original Toy Story, which blew us away now.
Yeah.
And you watch other Pixar films, and you just go, holy cow, that was primeval.
Yeah.
Now, here's what's really fun. This is what I want to recommend people to do. And, look, none of these movies are any good. The Transformers movies are all the same. It's all the same crap. And all the special features are all the same. It's behind the scenes, and Michael Bay says something, and, this was really hard, and this is how we did this, and so forth. And, you've seen one of these featurettes. You've seen them all. And unless you're some kind of an expert that's like into every nuance of the Decepticons,
if you're studying this crap for some reason,
if you're doing a doctoral dissertation on the gender among the Decepticons, knock yourselves out. But here's what's fun to do. Just mix them up and watch them out of order.
Yeah.
I swear, if you mix them up and watch them out of order, it still makes sense. You just find yourself going, Oh, look, Mark Wahlberg's in on the game now. Hey, Shia LaBeouf just came back. Must have been on vacation.
They make no less sense, that's for sure.
It still makes sense. First three of these are with Shia LaBeouf. Mark Wahlberg's in the fourth one. If you just slot the Mark Wahlberg one in there anywhere, even make it the first one, it all still makes sense.
You know the thing about those movies is that they are wealth creating machines.
Yeah, well, not anymore.
Not anymore. They're gone now.
They
were an industry for a while there, and mostly in the international market. That last one was really pointed at China and Hong Kong as much as it was anything in the United States. And then the industry sort of comes to an end, and then a new one sort of begins. But man, oh man, those movies made a whole lot of people very, very rich.
Yes,
which is interesting. Detroit on Blu-ray, actually, DVD and digital. From the director of Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30. Look, a lot of people really truly love this movie. I had all kinds of issues with it. It's about the 1967, the actual 1967 Detroit uprising, which happened after some police got a little rowdy with some black folks that were having a party in an area, and they brought in the paddy wagons and started smacking people around, and it was fairly not unlike today actually, but nevertheless, it's 1967, and things got out of hand. The National Guard got called in. The uprising went on for several days. There was a motel at which some young black folks took shelter. Some things happened, and the police and the National Guard infiltrated the hotel, took several of these people into a certain sort of custody, ostensibly to find out whom they felt had shot at them. Yeah. No one had been shot at. That did not happen at all. Things got out of control. This is all a true story, and people were killed, police misconduct, etc., etc. My problem with this movie has always been that this horrible tragedy is played by Bigelow et al. As a thriller.
Yeah.
As like Zero Dark 30, and I'm sorry, this is a drama. This is a dramatic tragedy, and you just can't take this tragedy and play it like a thriller. It felt exploitative.
I agree completely. It turns into a horror film at a certain point.
Yeah,
and she starts using horror film. And perhaps not intentionally, but it just felt. I thought, you know what? If the cops were, this feels like one of those hills, like Hills Have Eyes, right?
Yeah.
Like or even something like Deliverance.
Yeah.
If the cops were some kind of crazy hillbillies, and the people in the motel were hikers who had just wandered into the wrong neck of the woods. Then that's what this is. It becomes one of those movies, kind of a torture porn snuff film. That's
what it felt like. It did not feel like,
and that undermines the whole message.
The drama.
Here's what occurred to me. The singing group in the film.
Dramatics.
The Dramatics,
which was the actual Dramatics.
The actual Dramatics. I mean, I
when they were very, very, very young and before they were famous.
What I didn't know was the original lead man of the Dramatics never experienced their fame. It was because of this event that he left and went to a local church choir and became choir conductor.
Yeah.
That is a more interesting story to me. I want to know his story.
Yes.
I'd rather see a movie framed around him. And you know what? Don't make it just about Detroit. Make it about him. Yeah. Let me see some time after where his life went, their success. And, I know we're writing a different movie here.
Yeah, but those uprisings as a backdrop to a human narrative as opposed to them be the uprising. And it really was a little surprising. This is not really. There are really well made, well directed scenes in this movie.
Oh yeah, because she can do great filmmaking.
But overall, the movie is not very well made. It's scatological. We spend some time over here with this guy and this cop, and he does these things, and he kills a guy, and then we spend some time over here with these people, and then there's this courtroom drama later on. I mean, we were all over the place in this movie. So it's not particularly good filmmaking. Some good performances by a few people, and ultimately just the wrong tone in almost every possible way. Isn't it funny?
This was, for a moment, people were talking about this like it would be in the Oscar mix, and then it's just gone.
Then they actually watched it. It's like, whoa, no. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. Another one like that is Stronger.
Yeah.
Who again, based on a true story. Jake Gyllenhaal, Tatiana Maslany, who's very good in this. Miranda Richardson, who's also very good in it. All of these performances very good. Jake Gyllenhaal playing a young man who lost his legs during the Boston Marathon bombing.
Yeah.
And his family and his she was once his fiance, but she dumped him because he was this guy who never showed up for anything. He shows up one time for her running in that Boston Marathon and gets his legs blown off.
Yeah.
Deeply moving story. It really is. Wonderful performances, Miranda Richardson, all of that. For some reason, it just did not catch on.
Yeah.
But it is, it's a well done movie, and I liked it quite a lot. But it's just one of those things that happen sometimes. A movie just does not catch on with the greater society.
I love Jake Gyllenhaal, but I feel like he keeps just barely missing those parts. It's, I don't know. Anyway. I'll finish off the new movie stuff with this over here. Let's
you'll knock off a few more of these.
Yeah, let me just make quick mention of a couple of these. Guys and gun things. As long as we're talking about the real life stories. Manhunt Unabomber with Sam Worthington and Paul Bettany. And you know what? The Unabomber deserves a better movie than this, to be honest. We lived with that for quite a while.
40 years.
Yeah, and that was it was. I wouldn't say it was the most terrifying serial killer story in America. It's not like Manson and thinking, oh my gosh, who's going to break in. I mean, if you were any kind of a scientist or an academic of a certain type and in a certain field, maybe you should be a little more attentive to your mail. But, anyway, that guy, that lunatic in his little cabin, he held out for a long time. This is essentially about that hunt with Sam Worthington playing the FBI agent who, used forensic linguistics to sort of figure it out. Paul Bettany plays Kaczynski. That's not really good casting. It just, I don't know.
Kaczynski was not that good looking.
No, not even close.
No.
It's an okay film. It's not great. And then Blood Money, with John Cusack and Eller Coltrane, Willa Fitzgerald, Jacob Artist, is one of these movies that John Cusack keeps seeming to make, where he's just being a little bit too serious and a little bit too, I don't know. He wouldn't even have played this when he was 20 years younger, and I don't know why he's doing it anyway. The idea here is, you've got some guys who are out hiking around in the woods and find some money, and it turns out it's John Cusack's money, and he's armed with a gun, and he wants it back. And there you go. If this were Liam Neeson, I don't know, maybe I'd buy it, but John Cusack just shouldn't be doing these kinds of movies.
Nah, he's not that guy, dude.
He's not.
Yeah, you're the guy from Say Anything. Trying to get Eye on the Sky to come outside.
Yeah.
Victoria and Abul. This movie did not offend me as much as it offended some other people. It's wrong in a number of ways, but I understand its intention.
Yeah.
Which is, not to be offensive. It basically looks at the sort of British Raj period. This is Queen Victoria.
It's kind of a quasi sequel in some respects to when Judi Dench played Queen Victoria previously in Her Majesty Mrs. Brown.
Mrs. Brown. Yeah.
With Billy Connolly.
What the one thing that's clear about that old queen is that she liked a handsome man in a uniform.
From another culture.
Yeah. She liked
Scotsman and
Scotsman,
the
even the husband for that matter.
Yeah.
The old guy. And she was smitten by this particular man who was, and she learned to speak the language. The movie basically says this. We were terribly racist. So sorry. But the queen, she actually, she sort of figures some of that out and pushes things the other way. It offended a lot of people.
I know it did,
but it didn't really actually.
But Stephen Frears is not an offensive director. You need to understand where he comes from blue collar England. So anyway,
that does make sense. Vince Vaughn, the crazy Brawl in Cell Block 99. Jennifer Carpenter, Udo Kier, and Don Johnson in this crazy movie about this guy, Vince Vaughn, physically shaped, bald-headed, all beefed up, playing this guy who has all kinds of weird and intense problems going on. There's a scene in this movie where he beats a Camaro to death. and that's not the craziest and most violent scene in the movie. I don't really know that this movie, I don't really know what the hell is going on in this movie. I mean, it's just one of these sort of things that's pointed in a direction.
This got some weird love during our voting meeting.
Yeah, there are a few people who just really were into this movie. What I like about it is it points itself, and then it just keeps going. And then whatever is the next crazy thing that can happen, it does.
And it intentionally means to evoke a kind of 70s grindhouse vibe, like those old prison movies. It even does the artwork and the title in a very similar way. But it's not
campy like that Quentin and Rodriguez thing.
No, it's not at all.
Yeah. So anyway, Brawl and still Block 99.
You want to talk about violent? Let me tell you, violent. Stephen Yeun and Samara Weaving in the Joe Lynch film, and this is on 4K. Mayhem.
Yeah.
Now, Mayhem is a movie I really didn't want to like, didn't expect to like, wound up liking quite a lot. Stephen Yeun, who of course was on The Walking Dead, plays a guy, basically a white collar worker. And this, let me make clear, this is a zombie movie. It's not there are no zombies in it, but it's still a zombie movie. Here's the idea. So, bunch of white collar people working in this building. He is an attorney. He is a really ambitious attorney. And as is always the case with law firms, the really important people are on the higher levels, so that when murder becomes an obligation, you get into a game of death kind of, like all these movies. A Game of Death was that. The last Judge Dredd was like that. Yeah. The what's the Indonesian movie that everybody loves. The Raid. The Raid.
There are two of those. Yeah, they go into the building.
Like that. Yeah. There are a ton of Thai films that are like that. So the idea is that there's a virus. Isn't there always a virus that takes away all your inhibitions? And the building goes on to lockdown, and then it's while the people outside keep the building on lockdown, everybody inside just completely loses their minds, and he decides that I'm gonna murder everyone that stands between me, and I just been fired, so I'm just gonna kill them all. Anyway, Samara Weaving is the romantic lead, I guess, if you can say that there is one, but it is brutally and hilariously violent on a level that you can't even comprehend. It really is. It's an incredibly funny film, and it's not. I don't know that it means to be as funny as it is, but I enjoyed just how relentless it was.
Arnold Schwarzenegger in Killing Gunther.
Oh my gosh.
8 assassins, 1 target. That's the tagline for this movie. You know what's funny? Top of the way this movie it says Taron Killam, Kobe Smulders, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Taron Killam and Kobe Smulders are above. So what are you going to do? Taron Killam also wrote and directed this thing. Basically, it is a neat plot, though. The world's greatest hitman is this guy named Gunther. A whole bunch of other top-notch hit people decide they're sick of Gunther because he's getting all the good jobs, and he gets all the swag, and he gets all the shine, so they decide to kill Gunther. But Gunther is always just one step ahead. You know what I mean? It's an Arnold Schwarzenegger film from the 80s, but he made it last week.
Sweet.
So that's that.
And then England is Mine, which tanked so badly at the box office that they've had to do 2 things. They've given it a subheading, England is Mine, on becoming Morrissey. For people, it's like, it's about Morrissey, because England is Mine doesn't tell you anything. And then what they've also done is they put a little sticker now on the packaging that says, featuring Dunkirk star Jack Lowden as Morrissey. So we now realize that this movie is so desperate to get. They have to mention Morrissey twice and reference Dunkirk once. Please come see our Morrissey movie in which Morrissey sings twice.
The only thing remotely about Morrissey, like Morrissey in that movie, is that kid's hair.
It's really well done for a movie in which the Smiths don't even form until the last frame of the movie. Morrissey sings twice, and neither of them are.
And of course, he's not singing any famous songs.
No, there's nothing. It's like it's literally on becoming Morrissey, And the movie you want to see is the one that starts at the end.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's on Blu-ray. It's nicely done. It's well acted. It's just not very interesting.
Yeah. Well.
And that brings us to Dunkirk.
Ah, yes.
Now, we got a lot of Nolan going on this week. There is a 4K of Dunkirk along with a 4K of Interstellar to make sure that we're milking the Nolan thing as much as possible. And then there is also this beauty, which is the Christopher Nolan collection. Now, this is the Ultra HD Blu-ray Christopher Nolan collection.
Yeah. How far does it go back? What do we got?
It includes. Here we go. I'm going to roll right through all of them.
Yeah.
Dunkirk, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises, Inception, Interstellar, and The Prestige.
No, really?
Yep, that's it.
No, following? No, we're not. Early Nolan.
No, just pretty much from Batman Begins to the present.
Oh, okay.
That's what it is. I know. So that is the deal here. You get this obviously. You get the 4K. You get Blu-rays in this. It is a nice big thick mambo set, but I don't know that every movie in this really warrants it. I would almost recommend, because I'm not, again, I have problems with movies like Interstellar and The Prestige. I don't like The Prestige.
These are the big. I mean, to me, the Memento.
That's the more interesting film.
If you put a gun to my head and say you choose one, you got one.
Yeah.
Choose Memento.
Yeah.
Yeah. Frankly, I'd actually choose Following. Most people haven't seen that movie,
which is beautiful black.
Beautiful black and white. Yeah, brother was brother. But I would choose that or Memento before I chose any of these.
I know.
But what are you gonna do?
Anyway, the two new ones that are really worth mentioning is obviously Interstellar and Dunkirk. Interstellar comes with a whole bunch of special features that were all previously there. How does it look in 4K? It looks gorgeous. It's just too sharp. Yeah. Dunkirk is more interesting, and in Dunkirk because Dunkirk was mostly shot IMAX, 70mm IMAX. But there are portions of it, mostly the stuff with the Mark, what's his name, and his sons on the boat.
Yeah.
That was all shot 35, it was shot 35. So it's
which is a Nolan thing.
It's to sort of be more grounded. These are the people, and then we get to the war, and it blows up big. And I get it, but I wish it had all been 70. It would have been better. I am not as elated with Dunkirk as many people are. I still think it probably has an inside track to be Best Picture, but I don't know. It just
if I had to choose between Dunkirk-oriented movies, their finest would be the top of my list.
I just said that on the radio.
Darkest Hour would be the next one because it's still Dunkirk related.
Yep.
And Dunkirk would be my third choice.
I agree.
Dunkirk movies.
I agree completely. I mean, I admire the craft of it, but I still think that all these stories are less interesting than perhaps what really happened.
Yeah. And I got to tell you another thing, too. All those dark-haired white boys in those boats, they look exactly this. I'm like, wait a minute. Which
Harry Styles was in this movie.
Harry Styles.
Which one of the guys that looked like Harry Styles was Harry Styles?
And not for nothing. Everybody in most of this, all these handsome young men everybody had like $300 haircuts.
Yeah.
I'm looking at these. I'm like, you kids look fantastic.
Yeah.
To be under siege, such as you are.
Anyway, look, the only two that I knew that I could actually recognize was Kenneth Branagh and Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Because I know who they are.
Yeah, and good performances by Kenneth and Tom is just sort of like flying around on that plane, but
nobody's bad in this movie, and it's not a bad movie.
Mark Rylance
is terrific. Yeah. It's just there was no point in this movie where I felt the exhilaration that I felt I should be feeling when I'm watching a movie about the most legendary military rescue in history.
Yeah,
where common people stepped up and did what the military couldn't. That's an amazing thing.
And since he sort of jacks with time and space in this movie in sort of an insane way.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that already, though, if you're going to Interstellar this movie, then compress it such that this has more of a sense of urgency. Between each moment. Because you're already messing with stuff. So you then go ahead and mess with it and compress it up and make it have a sense of urgency that ought to be there. In Darkest Hour, you got Gary giving all those fabulous Churchill speeches, so you got that oomph going there. And in their finest, it's funny.
It's
while
great.
While at the same time being every bit as dramatic and poignant and moving as both of these nothing but dramatic movies. Yeah. So you get both.
Yeah.
So it wins their finest.
Anyway, that's Dunkirk. That's out on 4K, and we are done for the week.
Yeah.
We will see everybody next week. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.